What emerged from the UES Leviathan's weapon bays defied every rule of galactic warfare that had been established over thousands of years. Instead of energy beams that could cut through planets or exotic particles that warped reality, the human ship deployed swarms of simple metal projectiles moving at incredible speeds through space. Millions of these basic kinetic rounds spread out in seemingly random patterns, their trajectories making no tactical sense to the watching alien survivors, the Devourer fleet, now confident in their ability to counter any weapon after absorbing technologies from dozens of civilizations, began analyzing the human attack with their enhanced sensors. Their defensive systems, perfected through countless absorbed upgrades, easily tracked and intercepted the incoming projectiles. Several Devourer vessels actually opened their hulls to absorb the simple metal slugs, expecting to reverse engineer and replicate these crude human weapons for their own use. Commander Wells watched from the Leviathan's bridge as the enemy fleet confidently intercepted her first wave of attacks. Tactical report on enemy response to initial deployment. Lieutenant Morgan monitored the engagement through advanced sensors that the aliens had never seen before. Ma'am, the Devourers are absorbing our kinetic rounds exactly as predicted. Their analysis systems are treating them as primitive projectile weapons. That was when Commander Wells activated the second phase of humanity's attack plan. Each intercepted projectile exploded, but not with the chemical explosives that galactic civilizations might have expected. Instead, they released clouds of self-replicating nanobots that had been programmed with one devastatingly simple directive: disassemble any technology more complex than basic metals and ceramics. The microscopic machines spread through the Devourer hulls like a plague, targeting the quantum matrices and exotic materials that allowed advanced alien technology to function. The Devourers' first hint of trouble came when their newly absorbed Zephyrian crystal arrays began to crack and crumble. The nanobots, designed by Earth's greatest engineers over decades of studying galactic technology, specifically attacked the quantum structures that made crystal energy manipulation possible. Within minutes, the geometric perfection of Devourer hulls became pitted and scarred as entire systems simply fell apart at the molecular level. "Impossible," broadcasted the lead Devourer vessel in a distorted voice that mixed languages from a dozen absorbed species. "Technology cannot move backward. We adapt, we improve, we consume all advancement." Commander Wells responded on all frequencies, her voice carrying to every ship in the system. "That is exactly your problem. You consume technologies you never understood, built on principles you never learned. Humanity spent 3 centuries being dismissed as primitive. We used that time to study every weakness in advanced galactic civilization. The Leviathan's third weapon system came online as the nanobots continued their work of dismantling the Devourer's absorbed technologies. Arrays of electromagnetic railguns that looked like simple kinetic weapons began firing, but their projectiles were not solid metal. Instead, they launched capsules containing Earth's most aggressive bacteria and viruses, genetically modified over generations to consume the exotic materials that advanced technology depended on. The biological warfare proved even more devastating than the nanobots. Vorthak biocomponents integrated into Devourer hulls became infected with engineered diseases that made the living tissue consume itself. Luminary energy matrices were disrupted by microorganisms that fed on pure photons, converting organized energy back into random heat. Even the seemingly indestructible Zephyrian crystals proved vulnerable to bacteria that treated their quantum structures as food. Captain Zane Parker watched from his damaged dreadnought as the impossible happened before his eyes. The Devourer fleet that had effortlessly defeated the galaxy's greatest military force was falling apart under attack from weapons that any first-year engineering student would consider laughably primitive. "This makes no sense," he said to his science officer as they observed bacteria literally eating through crystal formations that could withstand the energy of a star. "How can simple biological organisms affect quantum crystal matrices?" The answer came from Admiral Campbell's transmission from Earth, broadcast to the entire system. Captain Parker, your people spent millennia perfecting crystal technology, but you never asked the simple question. What happens when you introduce biological agents specifically designed to interrupt quantum coherence? We did ask that question, and we spent 200 years finding the answer. As the Devourer fleet struggled with cascading system failures, the Leviathan revealed its most shocking surprise. The massive ship began to unfold like something incredible. Mechanical flower, its hull sections separating and repositioning themselves throughout the Kepler system. What everyone had thought was one large warship was actually a distributed fleet of interconnected platforms. Each one specialized for a different aspect of the battle. Commander Wells coordinated the deployment from the central command platform as her ship transformed into a system-wide weapons grid. All platforms report ready for final phase deployment. We now have coverage of the entire system. No Devourer vessel can escape without passing through our defensive network. The watching Galactic fleet observed in stunned silence as humanity's unconventional approach systematically dismantled an enemy that had seemed unstoppable. The Devourer's adaptive capabilities, their greatest strength, proved to be their fatal weakness when faced with attacks designed to destroy complexity itself. Chancellor Zeltar broadcast from his damaged cruiser, his crystalline voice filled with something that might have been awe. How is this possible? Your weapons are primitive, your technology is centuries behind ours. Admiral Campbell's image appeared on screens throughout the system, her weathered face showing satisfaction as she watched the galaxy's greatest threat crumble. Chancellor, that is exactly why our weapons work. You cannot adapt to something you consider beneath notice. You cannot absorb and improve weapons that are specifically designed to destroy advancement itself. The lead Devourer vessel, now a hollow shell of its former self as its absorbed technologies failed one by one, made a final desperate transmission. We do not comprehend. Your species should be inferior. Your capabilities should be insignificant. Commander. Wells provided the final answer as the last Devourer ships broke apart, their hulls unable to maintain cohesion as the nanobots and biological agents completed their work. We are inferior by your standards, and that saved the galaxy. Sometimes the most devastating weapon is the one your enemy never imagines you would be foolish enough to use. The Leviathan's platforms began to reconfigure once again, but instead of forming a single ship, they created a massive orbital structure around Kepler's primary star. The human fleet had not just won the battle. They had established a permanent presence at the heart of Galactic civilization. As the debris field that had once been an unstoppable Devourer armada drifted through space, every surviving ship in the Galactic fleet maintained a respectful distance from the human platforms. The species they had mocked as primitive had just demonstrated that sometimes the greatest victories came not from the most advanced weapons, but from the wisdom to know when simple solutions were the most powerful of all. The war was over, but the galaxy would never be the same. Earth had proven that being underestimated was the greatest advantage of all, and that primitive did not mean powerless when backed by 3 centuries of careful planning and the determination to succeed where advanced civilizations had failed. The news reached Earth 3 days later through official Galaxy Council channels, delivered in the cold bureaucratic language that alien civilizations used when discussing unfortunate incidents. Dr. Lisa Morrison was in her laboratory studying plant genetics when the call came through on her personal communicator. Captain Danny Morrison was leading flight training exercises above the Pacific Ocean when his squadron was ordered to return to base immediately. The official report stated that Jake Morrison had died in an unfortunate accident during a cultural exchange program on New Haven Colony. The Galaxy Council expressed their deepest regrets and offered standard compensation for the loss of human life, equivalent to 50,000 galactic credits. The report mentioned nothing about precursor artifacts, energy weapons, or the true circumstances of the boy's death. Lisa Morrison collapsed to her knees in the sterile white laboratory, her scientific mind struggling to process the impossible information. Her son, her bright, curious boy who asked endless questions about everything from quantum mechanics to why flowers grew in different colors, was gone. Danny Morrison landed his fighter craft with shaking hands. His pilot training, the only thing keeping him functional as the base commander delivered the devastating news. The Morrison family had been part of Earth's diplomatic corps for over a decade, believing deeply in humanity's peaceful expansion into the galaxy. They had volunteered for the cultural exchange program because they wanted their son to grow up understanding and appreciating the diverse species that shared the universe with humans. Now that same program had killed their child. Catherine Wells arrived on Earth 2 weeks later. Her diplomatic immunity the only thing that had allowed her to escape Galaxy Council detention. She carried with her a small data storage device hidden inside a medical implant, containing the video evidence she had managed to record before alien security forces confiscated all official recording equipment from the scene. Admiral Karen Price sat in her underground office beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching the smuggled footage for the 5th time. The video showed everything in stark detail. Jake's innocent curiosity, the harmless holographic display from the ancient artifact, and Commander Zelkar's panicked order to kill the human child. There was no accident, no malfunction, no tragic misunderstanding. There was only cold-blooded murder followed by an elaborate cover-up. President Alex Turner convened an emergency session of Earth's High Command in the secure bunkers beneath Washington, D.C., the room filled with humanity's top military leaders, scientists, and intelligence officers as they watched Catherine Wells' evidence play on the main screen. The silence that followed was more terrifying than any scream of rage. "How long have we known this was possible?" Turner asked quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. Admiral Price activated a holographic display showing Earth's defensive capabilities as registered with the Galaxy Council. According to official records, we have 12 patrol vessels, 36 colony ships, and standard planetary defense systems. We are classified as a Level 3 civilization with limited military capabilities. She paused and activated a second display. According to actual records, we have been preparing for this scenario for 237 years. The room filled with the soft hum of machinery as ancient systems buried deep beneath Earth's surface began receiving activation signals for the first time in over 2 centuries. In hidden facilities scattered across the planet, automated systems started their startup sequences. Fusion reactors that had been dormant since humanity first encountered alien civilizations began cycling through their power-up procedures. Dr. Richard Kane, Earth's leading expert on alien psychology, stood before the assembled leadership with a grim expression. The Galaxy Council made a fundamental error in their assessment of human nature. They believe that emotions make us weak and unpredictable. They have no understanding that our emotions are what made us the apex predators of a Deathworld. He activated a 3-dimensional model of human neural pathways. When they killed Jake Morrison, they triggered something that exists in every human being but rarely surfaces in our modern civilization. They activated our pack protection instincts, our territorial defense mechanisms, and our capacity for sustained calculated revenge. Deep beneath the Sahara Desert, massive blast doors ground open for the first time in decades. Automated systems began warming up weapons that had never been tested in actual combat, but had been refined and improved through centuries of computer simulations. The facility's artificial intelligence, dormant for so long that it had become legend, started running system diagnostics and battle preparation protocols. Similar facilities activated across Earth's surface, hidden bases beneath the ocean floors, camouflaged installations in mountain ranges, and orbital platforms disguised as space debris all began responding to the Deathworld protocols. These systems had been designed during humanity's darkest period, when they first realized they might be alone in a hostile universe and needed to be prepared for any threat. Lisa Morrison stood at her son's empty bedroom window, watching the night sky with eyes that had cried all their tears. She could feel something changing in the air around her, a subtle vibration that seemed to come from deep within the Earth itself. Her scientist's mind recognized the signs of massive machinery coming online, but her mother's heart felt something else entirely. She felt the awakening of humanity's protective fury. Danny Morrison received new orders that night. transferring him from routine patrol duties to something called Special Operations Command. The briefing materials were classified at levels he had never seen before, but the assignment was simple enough to understand. He would be training to pilot weapon systems that officially did not exist, in preparation for missions that had never been publicly discussed. Catherine Wells found herself promoted overnight from diplomatic observer to special advisor for alien relations. Her new job description was equally simple: help Earth's military understand exactly how alien species thought, fought, and died. The Galaxy Council had made her watch a human child murdered in cold blood, and now they would learn what happened. When you gave humans detailed knowledge of their enemies. President Turner addressed the nation 3 days after the Deathworld Protocol's activation began. His speech was brief and measured, explaining that Jake Morrison had been murdered by Galaxy Council forces and that Earth would be seeking justice through appropriate channels. He made no mention of the massive military preparations taking place beneath the planet's surface, or the ancient fleets that were beginning to stir in the darkness between stars. But across Earth, people began to notice changes. The ground vibrated with unfamiliar rhythms. The night sky occasionally flickered with lights that weren't supposed to be there. Electronic devices picked up signals from sources that didn't appear on any official registry. Humanity was waking up from 2 centuries of peaceful sleep, and the galaxy was about to discover what they had been dreaming about. In the deepest vaults beneath Earth's crust, something that had been waiting patiently for over 200 years finally received the signal it had been designed to recognize. The Deathworld fleet began its awakening sequence, and Jake Morrison's death became the spark that would ignite humanity's transformation from peaceful explorers into the galaxy's most feared predators. High Chancellor Vexenath of the Ethereal Council floated nervously in his private chambers aboard the diplomatic vessel Harmony's Edge as it approached the Sol system. The energy readings coming from Earth had been increasing steadily for the past week, showing power signatures that made no sense according to Galaxy Council records of human technological capabilities. The Ethereals prided themselves on being the most advanced civilization in the galaxy, masters of energy manipulation and dimensional physics. Yet the readings from Earth's star system showed power sources that registered beyond their understanding. Something was happening on the human homeworld that defied all their previous assessments of human civilization. Commander Kreck's volume of the Zephyrion military escort scratched his scaled chin thoughtfully as he reviewed the tactical displays. Chancellor, these energy patterns suggest massive industrial activity across multiple planetary bodies. Our intelligence reports indicate that humans possess only basic fusion technology and limited space-based infrastructure. Vexenath's translucent form shimmered with anxiety. Perhaps their grief over the unfortunate incident has driven them to some form of collective madness. We must approach this situation with careful diplomacy and remind them of their place in the galactic order. As the diplomatic fleet entered Earth's outer system, their sensors immediately detected something that shouldn't exist. Massive structures hidden within the asteroid belt were powering up, their energy signatures blazing like newborn stars. What the Galaxy Council had cataloged as random space debris was revealing itself to be an intricate network of hidden installations. Admiral Karen Price stood in the command center of Luna Base, watching the alien diplomatic vessels approach through displays that showed far more detail than any alien species suspected possible. Earth's monitoring technology had been deliberately understated in all official reports, allowing humans to observe Galaxy Council activities throughout the sector without detection. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the lead alien vessel, reported Communications Officer Jenny Walsh. They're requesting immediate audience with Earth leadership to discuss the concerning energy readings from our system. Price smiled coldly as she activated the response transmitter. Put me through to their Chancellor directly. The holographic image of High Chancellor Vexenath appeared in the command center, his ethereal features showing obvious distress. Greetings, Admiral Price. The Galaxy Council has detected unusual activity in your system and wishes to offer assistance in resolving any technical difficulties you may be experiencing. There are no technical difficulties, Chancellor, Price replied in a voice that could freeze starlight. What you're detecting is Earth responding appropriately to the murder of one of our children. The alien's form flickered with shock. Murder? Admiral, I believe there has been some misunderstanding. The incident on New Haven was ruled an unfortunate accident by our investigation board. Price activated a holographic display showing Catherine Wells' smuggled footage. The video played in perfect clarity, showing Jake Morrison's innocent interaction with the precursor artifact followed by Commander Zelkara's order to kill the human child. The Chancellor's ethereal glow dimmed significantly as he watched the truth unfold. You lied to us, Price continued, her voice never rising but carrying the weight of absolute certainty. You murdered our child and then attempted to cover it up with bureaucratic nonsense and monetary compensation. You thought we would simply accept this injustice and continue our peaceful coexistence. Vexenath struggled to process what he was seeing. Admiral, even if this footage is authentic, surely we can reach some form of diplomatic resolution. The Galaxy Council is prepared to offer significant concessions in exchange for your cooperation in reducing these concerning energy readings. The response came not from Admiral Price but from President Turner himself, his image appearing alongside the Admiral's. Chancellor, there will be no negotiation. There will be no diplomatic resolution. There will only be justice for Jake Morrison. As if summoned by the President's words, new contacts began appearing on the Galaxy Council fleet's sensors. Ships emerged from positions that should have been empty space, their stealth systems disengaging to reveal vessels of a design that existed in no alien database. These weren't the small exploration craft that humans had been using for decades of peaceful contact. These were warships built by a species that understood violence at a level that terrified civilized races. Captain Betty Ross transmitted from her command post on Mars, her image joining the communication. Chancellor, I think it's time you understood what you're really dealing with. Every human colony you've ever visited, every trade agreement you've signed, every diplomatic mission we've sent to your worlds, all of it has been intelligence gathering. The revelation hit the alien leadership like a physical blow. Ross continued her explanation with clinical precision. New Haven Colony wasn't just a farming settlement. It was an observation post monitoring 17 different alien shipping routes. The human trade delegation to the Kethmori homeworld wasn't just conducting business. They were mapping your planetary defenses and cataloging your military capabilities. Commander Krexval's warrior instinct screamed warnings as he realized the implications. You're saying that humans have been conducting espionage operations for decades while maintaining the pretense of peaceful expansion. Not espionage, Price corrected. Preparation. We learned long ago that the universe is not a kind place for unprepared species. Every human you've met, every facility you've visited, every seemingly innocent question we've asked has been part of a comprehensive intelligence operation spanning 2 centuries. The alien fleet sensors continued to detect new human vessels appearing throughout the system. Ships emerged from hiding places in gas giant atmospheres, from camouflage positions behind planetary rings, and from the depths of interplanetary space where no civilization had thought to look. Each vessel radiated power signatures that suggested weapon systems designed for total warfare rather than civilized combat. Dr. Richard Kane's voice joined the communication from Earth's surface. Chancellor, your species evolved on worlds where cooperation and logic determined survival. Humans evolved on a planet where everything tried to kill us every single day. We learned to think like predators because that was the only way to survive. The displays showed tactical analyses of every major Galaxy Council military installation, detailed maps of alien trade routes, and comprehensive psychological profiles of key alien leaders. Humanity had been studying the galaxy's civilizations, with the patience of apex predators observing their potential prey. The Jake Morrison incident was the activation trigger, Kane continued. Every human civilization has protective instincts regarding children. But we developed ours on a world where constant vigilance meant the difference between life and death. When you killed our child, you triggered every survival instinct that made us the dominant species on a Deathworld. High Chancellor Vexenoth struggled to maintain his composure as the reality of the situation became clear. The Galaxy Council had not been dealing with a primitive species seeking guidance from advanced civilizations. They had been observed, studied, and catalogued by predators who had been patiently waiting for an excuse to reveal their true nature. The human fleet continued to grow around the diplomatic vessels, surrounding them with firepower that defied all previous estimates of human military capability. Each ship carried weapons designed not for the clean, efficient warfare practiced by civilized species, but for the brutal, overwhelming violence that had allowed humans to survive on a world that spawned nightmares. You have 72 hours to deliver Jake Morrison's killers to Earth for justice, President Turner announced. Failure to comply will result in the implementation of Final Protocol 7. The communication ended, leaving the Galaxy Council fleet alone in space, surrounded by predators that had finally stopped pretending to be prey. The 72-hour countdown began with the Galaxy Council desperately trying to understand what Final Protocol 7 meant, while their scientists worked frantically to analyze the human fleet surrounding their diplomatic vessels. General Krextel, the Council's top military strategist, had never encountered weapon signatures like those emanating from the human warships deep in the Kuiper Belt. Massive structures that had been disguised as ice formations for over a century began shedding their camouflage. What emerged were ship construction facilities the size of small moons, their assembly bays opening to release vessels that had been built in secret using technologies the Galaxy Council had never imagined possible. Fleet Admiral Susan Blake felt the familiar sensation of cryogenic revival as her stasis pod opened for the first time in 103 years. Her body moved stiffly as medical systems pumped stimulants and nutrients into her bloodstream, bringing her back to full consciousness. Around her, thousands of other human military personnel were awakening from their long sleep, called back to duty by protocols that had waited patiently for activation, the bridge of the UES. Retribution stretched out before her like a cathedral of war, its displays showing tactical information that represented centuries of careful preparation. The ship itself was 3 kilometers long and built with redundant systems that could survive planetary bombardment. Its armor was made from materials harvested from the cores of dead stars, and its weapons were designed to crack planets if necessary. Blake's first order was simple: open a channel to all Galaxy Council frequencies. Her message broadcast across the entire sector, reaching every alien world, space station, and vessel within 50 light years. I am Fleet Admiral Susan Blake of the human Deathworld fleet. We are no longer hiding. Jake Morrison was murdered by your people, and justice will be served. You have 47 hours remaining. Commander Andy Foster led his stealth squadron through the outer edges of Galaxy Council space, their ships invisible to alien sensors thanks to technology that bent light and energy around their hulls. His mission was simple: demonstrate to the aliens that nowhere in their territory was truly safe from human reach. The first target was the supposedly impregnable fortress world of Vexthari Prime, home to the insectoid species that had produced Jake Morrison's killer. The planet's orbital defense platforms had been considered unbreachable by any known military force, protected by energy shields that could deflect the combined firepower of entire fleets. Foster's squadron approached the planet from the shadow of its largest moon, their ships moving silently through space like sharks through dark water. The alien defenders had no idea death was approaching until the first defense platform simply vanished in a burst of controlled antimatter, its destruction so precise that nearby stations didn't even detect the explosion until seconds later. One by one, the orbital defenses disappeared. Not destroyed in spectacular explosions that would alert the entire system, but simply removed from existence with surgical precision. The message was clear: human technology could reach anywhere and strike without warning. General Krextel received the reports from Vexthari Prime with growing horror. His warrior species had built their reputation on superior military technology. and tactical superiority, but the human attack had bypassed every defense system without triggering a single alarm. The stealth capabilities alone suggested technology that was decades ahead of anything in Galaxy Council databases. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his intelligence officers. "Our records show that humans have primitive military capabilities, and no advanced stealth technology." Commander Zulkith, his top analyst, pulled up holographic displays showing the tactical breakdown of the human attack. "General, it appears that every assessment we've made of human capabilities has been deliberately misleading. The ships that attacked our fortress world used weapons and defensive systems that don't match any known technology." The human fleet continued to reveal itself across the galaxy. Ships emerged from hiding places that defied imagination, buried beneath the surfaces of asteroids, camouflaged within nebulae, and hidden in the gravitational shadows of black holes. Each vessel that appeared was larger and more heavily armed than the last, suggesting a military buildup that had been ongoing for centuries. Captain Roy Chun commanded one of the newest additions to the human fleet, a fast attack vessel called the UES Vengeance. His ship specialized in what humans called psychological warfare, attacks designed not just to destroy enemy assets but to create fear and uncertainty. Among alien populations, Chain's target was a Galaxy Council communication relay station that coordinated information flow between 12 different star systems. Instead of simply destroying the station, his team infiltrated its computer systems and began broadcasting messages throughout Council space. The broadcast showed footage of Jake Morrison's murder, followed by images of the human fleet that was now emerging throughout the galaxy. "This is what happens when you kill our children," the messages declared in every major alien language. "This is what you have awakened." The psychological impact was devastating. Alien civilizations that had viewed humans as primitive and emotional suddenly realized they were being hunted by predators who had been studying them for generations. Panic spread through Council space as every previous interaction with humans was re-examined with the terrifying knowledge that humanity had been preparing for war all along. Admiral Blake received status reports from fleet commanders across the galaxy as more ships reported ready for combat operations. The UES Nemesis emerged from the asteroid belt with weapons that could sterilize entire continents. The UES Wrath decloaked near the Council's central command station with armor so thick that it could ram through enemy vessels without taking damage. Each ship represented not just military hardware but a philosophy of warfare that the Galaxy Council had never encountered. These weren't vessels designed for the clean, efficient conflicts that civilized species engaged in. They were weapons of total war, built by a species that had learned survival on a world where mercy was a luxury that meant death. Dr. Kane's psychological analysis proved accurate as reports flooded in from across Council space showing alien populations demanding answers from their governments. The revelation that humans had been conducting intelligence operations while maintaining friendly diplomatic relations shattered the trust that held the Galaxy Council together. "They've been living among us," reported Intelligence Chief Mordex from the Council's Central Command. Human traders, diplomats, scientists, and cultural exchange participants, all of them were gathering information about our military capabilities, trade routes, and political structures. The scope of human infiltration became clear as one report after another revealed the truth. Human colonies that seemed defenseless were actually fortified intelligence posts. Human trade vessels carried sophisticated scanning equipment that had mapped every major military installation in Council space. Human diplomats had used their access to government facilities to plant monitoring devices that had been transmitting data for decades. Fleet. Admiral Blake smiled grimly as she watched. The final pieces of humanity's grand strategy fall into place. The Galaxy Council had 72 hours to deliver justice for Jake Morrison, but they were only now beginning to understand that they were facing an enemy that had been preparing for this moment since the day humans first encountered alien life. The human fleet was no longer hiding, and the galaxy was about to learn what happened when you gave a species of apex predators A reason to stop pretending to be civilized. The 72-hour deadline passed with agonizing silence from the galaxy. Council's Central Command, as their leadership remained locked in emergency sessions, desperately trying to find a solution that would satisfy humanity's demand for justice, without admitting the full scope of their failure. High Chancellor Vexenoth floated nervously in the council chambers as reports continued flowing in about human fleet movements throughout their territory. President Turner appeared on every communication screen in council space at exactly the moment the deadline expired. His image was calm and measured, but his words carried the weight of an entire species united in purpose. The Galaxy Council has chosen to ignore our reasonable demand for justice. Final Protocol 7 is now in effect. Fleet Admiral Blake received the authorization she had been waiting for since awakening from cryogenic sleep. The human fleet moved with precision that spoke of centuries of planning and preparation. But this was not the genocidal rampage that the Galaxy Council had feared. This was something far more terrifying, the systematic dismantling of their entire civilization by opponents, who understood exactly how to destroy them. The first targets were not military installations or population centers, but the communication networks that held the Galaxy Council together. Human infiltrators who had been living among alien populations for decades revealed themselves, taking control of relay stations and data hubs with coordinated precision. Within 6 hours, the Council's ability to coordinate a response was crippled. Captain Roy Chun led the assault on the central banking facility that processed all interstellar trade throughout Council space. His team didn't destroy the station but instead infiltrated its computer systems and began systematically freezing accounts, rerouting shipments, and disrupting the economic networks that supported alien civilizations. The beauty of this approach, Chen explained to his officers as they worked, is that we're not killing anyone. We're just making it impossible for their society to function. When you depend on complex systems to survive, losing control of those systems is worse than any weapon. Admiral Blake watched the tactical displays as human forces demonstrated their complete dominance over Council territory. Trade routes that had operated for thousands of years were severed not through destruction but through occupation. Human ships appeared at key intersections throughout the galaxy, politely but firmly redirecting all traffic according to new regulations that effectively cut off entire star systems from each other. The psychological warfare component proved even more effective than the military operations. Dr. Kane's analysis of alien psychology had provided detailed instructions on how to create maximum terror with minimum violence. Humans began appearing in places they shouldn't be able to reach, demonstrating their ability to penetrate any defense and reach any target. Commander Andy Foster's stealth ships continued their demonstration of human capabilities by infiltrating the personal quarters of Galaxy Council leadership. They left behind small devices that projected holographic messages showing Jake Morrison's face along with countdown timers, indicating how much longer each alien leader had to live if justice was not served. The message was clear: if humans could place devices in the private chambers of the galaxy's most protected leaders, they could place weapons there just as easily. The psychological impact was devastating as Council leadership realized they were completely vulnerable to human retaliation. General Krexthal attempted to organize military resistance but discovered that human intelligence had penetrated far deeper than anyone had imagined. His own command staff included humans who had been living as perfect alien mimics for decades, using advanced technology to alter their appearance and biology while gathering intelligence about Council military capabilities. "Sir," reported his aide Commander Viktar, "we're receiving surrender requests from 17 different member species. They're demanding that we turn over Commander Zelkar to the humans immediately." The Zephyrian general's warrior pride struggled with the reality of complete defeat. How many of our major military installations remain under our control? The answer came reluctantly. "None, sir. Human forces have assumed control of every strategic facility in Council space. They're not destroying anything, but they've made it clear that all of our military assets now operate under their supervision." Meanwhile, on the fortress world of Vexthari Prime, Commander Zelkar cowered in his personal bunker as human marines systematically penetrated every defense the planet could offer. The same compound eyes that had watched Jake Morrison die now stared in terror at humans, who moved through his supposedly impregnable fortress like it was made of paper. Captain Danny Morrison led the assault team that finally reached Zelkar's hiding place. The irony was not lost on him that he was capturing his own son's killer, but his face showed only professional determination as his Marines surrounded the alien commander. "Commander Zelkar," Danny said quietly, "you are under arrest for the murder of Jake Morrison. You will be transported to Earth to face trial for your crimes." The insectoid alien clicked his mandibles frantically as human soldiers placed him in restraints designed specifically for his species. "This is against all interstellar law. The Galaxy Council will never accept human jurisdiction over Council." "Citizens," Danny's response was cold and final, "the Galaxy Council no longer exists. Humanity is now the governing authority for this galaxy." The truth of that statement became clear as reports arrived from across former Council space. Every major government facility, military installation, and economic center was now under human control. The transition had been so swift and complete that most alien populations hadn't even realized what was happening until it was over. President Turner addressed the galaxy from the former council chambers, which had been quietly occupied by human forces during the chaos. "The Galaxy Council is hereby dissolved. A new galactic government will be established under human leadership, with justice and protection of all citizens as our primary mandate." He paused, allowing the magnitude of the announcement to sink in. "The murder of Jake Morrison has demonstrated that the previous system was incapable of protecting innocent life. That failure will not be repeated." Fleet Admiral Blake oversaw the establishment of human administrative centers on every major world in the former Council territory. The transition was surprisingly peaceful as alien populations realized that humans were not interested in genocide or enslavement, but rather in creating a system that would prevent future atrocities. Dr. Lisa Morrison stood at her son's grave on New Haven Colony, now surrounded by flowers from 1,000 different worlds. Above her, human patrol ships maintained constant vigilance, ensuring that no child would ever again die to alien prejudice or fear. The small headstone bore a simple inscription: "Jake Morrison, age 10, his curiosity changed the galaxy." Below that, in smaller text, were the words that had become humanity's new motto: "We protect our own." Danny Morrison placed his hand on his wife's shoulder as they watched alien children playing safely in the distance under the protection of human guards. Their son's death had transformed humanity from a peripheral species into the galaxy's dominant power, but the cost had been more than any parent should have to pay. He would have loved seeing all these different species working together. Lisa whispered, her voice carrying both grief and hope. The galaxy had learned that there were things worse than death, things that happen when you threaten the children of a species that had evolved in hell and learned to call it home. Jake Morrison's legacy was a universe where innocent curiosity was protected rather than punished, where justice was swift and certain, and where humanity's protective instincts ensured that such a tragedy would never occur again.